You know, I remember walking out of Espanyol having seen Brazil get knocked out of the World Cup in Italy. Rossi hat-trick. Tears falling down Bobby Charlton's face. It's the best game you've ever seen, isn't it?
Garth Crooks faced unbelievable racism, not the kind that fades with a quiet apology, not the kind that stays in one place. This was systematic. This was everywhere. He faced it roaring from thousands of fans, even after he scored a hat-trick for England. He faced it whispered in dressing rooms from teammates who called themselves his brothers. He faced it on London streets when police treated him like a criminal, despite being a national figure. Yet this story is not about the racism destroying him. This is about one man who looked at a broken system and decided to break it first. This is about how Garth Crooks became the first black chairman of the Professional Footballers Association and rewrote football's entire rulebook. Number 3. John Barnes called him a beacon of change. This is the story that legends are finally telling. But wait, if you are seeing this unfold right now, give this video some hype. Your hype helps this story reach people who need to hear it. It takes 1 second, just one. Your support means everything. Now let us dive into September 1978. The date is September 19th, 1978. England under-21 team. Denmark is the opponent. Number 4, Cyril Regis is on that pitch. His teammate Garth Crooks is having the match of his life. He scores once, the crowd makes noise, but not the right kind. He scores twice, the booing gets louder. He completes a hat-trick. 3 goals, 3 perfect performances. But instead of celebration, there is hatred pouring down from the stands. The crowd is screaming racist abuse at their own player, at a teenager wearing the England shirt. Regis would describe that moment decades later with a word that cuts deep: amazed. Not amazed like wonder, amazed like shocked horror. He said it was pure hatred. Here was a young black footballer doing exactly what every England player dreams of doing, and his own nation's supporters attacked him for the colour of his skin. Nothing he achieved mattered. Understanding this moment means understanding the 1970s. Football stadiums were not places of joy, they were places of raw anger. The economy was collapsing, jobs were vanishing, unemployment was climbing, fear was spreading through working-class communities, and into that fear stepped the National Front. They came deliberately. They saw football stadiums as recruitment grounds. They used black players as symbols of everything they claimed to hate. For a young black footballer like Crooks, stepping into a stadium meant stepping into genuine danger. He was not just a player anymore, he was a symbol, and symbols made frightened people furious. Crooks was 13 when he entered professional football. Spit was thrown at him. Monkey chants followed him everywhere. This was not occasional, this was standard, and there was no protection, no law against it. Not in 1970s England. You could scream whatever racist abuse you wanted at a football match and face 0 consequences. The terraces were a free zone, a place where hate speech had no cost. But the real damage was not in the stands. It was hidden. It was inside. The dressing room was worse than the terraces. Crooks himself used a word that stuck: bear pit. That was his description. Number 2. John Barnes understood exactly what he meant. It was a closed space where the worst of human nature emerged unchecked. Managers knew racism was happening. They saw it. They heard it. They chose to ignore it completely. Instead of protecting black players, clubs told them to develop thicker skin. Racism was reframed as a test of character. If you complained, you were weak. If you spoke up, you were causing trouble. The message was clear. Your suffering is your problem. Cope alone. Stay silent. Number 1. Sol Campbell spoke about this years later. He explained how management indifference worked. Campbell said that when Crooks was fighting in dressing rooms, the people in charge simply looked the other way. The only difference for Campbell was becoming captain. That gave him power. That gave him a platform. Crooks had neither. He had to survive in a space that claimed to be his team, surrounded by people paid to protect him, who instead abandoned him completely. There is a moment from the 1980s that reveals how twisted things had become. Crooks is at a Tottenham social gathering. A white teammate asks him something that seems innocent. "Why do you blacks always stick together?" Crooks answers with perfect clarity. He says, "Why do you whites always stick together? I see Brian Robson next to Ray Wilkins all the time. I never see them standing with Viv Anderson or John Barnes." When white players grouped together, nobody questioned it. That was team bonding. When black players did the same thing, people saw it as suspicious, cliquey. Whiteness was invisible. It was the default. Blackness was always visible. It was always being watched. But Crooks did not stay silent forever. Barnes gave testimony that Crooks understood something fundamental. You cannot just play through racism and hope it disappears. You cannot score goals and pretend the system is working. You have to fight the system itself. In 1988, Crooks made history. He became the first black chairman of the Professional Footballers Association. He moved from being a victim to being an architect. He understood that the real enemy was not just the crowd, it was the boardrooms. It was the people in charge who said nothing. It was the indifference of power. Crooks then led a documentary called Football United. Channel 4 broadcast it in 1991. It exposed racial zoning. Clubs and their surrounding communities had created walls. Black families lived beside stadiums. They were unwelcome inside them. The documentary proved that racism was not some hooligan problem. It was a leadership problem. It started at the top. Boardroom indifference was as poisonous as terrorist chanting. Crooks had moved the conversation from individual suffering to institutional failure, from personal resilience to systemic accountability. The 1991 Football Offences Act finally made racial chanting illegal. You could be arrested. You could be banned from stadiums for life. An anti-racism movement grew. Kick It Out emerged. Things improved noticeably, but this was not victory. It was progress. Racism had not disappeared. It had changed shape. It became less visible. It moved underground. It stayed in boardrooms. It stayed in hiring. It stayed embedded in the culture. Then, 1990, Crooks is in London buying snacks for a charity meeting. Plainclothes police officers stop him. They accuse him of shoplifting. They treat him like a criminal. One officer responds to his mention of volunteer work with mockery and contempt. Only when another officer recognizes him does everything change. Suddenly, he is a person. Suddenly, he is safe. This moment haunted Crooks. He filed a complaint. He said something that still echoes. If I don't have a chance, what chance has anyone else? It meant the racism followed him everywhere. Fame did not protect him. Achievement did not protect him. The modern era still carries the same patterns. Crooks and Campbell have pointed out that black managers are hired only as last resorts. They arrive during crisis. They are given less time to prove themselves. As of 2012, only 4 black managers existed among all 92 professional clubs in England. Crooks has been vocal about clubs prioritizing star players over accountability. When Luis Suarez faced racism accusations, his club backed him anyway. When John Terry was involved in similar incidents, he kept playing. Clubs chose winning over standing up. Here is what matters. Garth Crooks endured hatred that most people cannot imagine. The crowd attacked him. Teammates silenced him. Police disrespected him. Yet he chose to fight not just for himself, but for everyone coming after. He built something that did not exist before. A professional infrastructure. A system where players could speak out without being called weak, where racism could be named and addressed. The terraces are safer now because of him. Players are protected now because of structures he helped create. The conversation changed because he was brave enough to break the silence first. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and comment below.